I got a tour of an imperiled butterfly's captive breeding program at the Florida Museum of Natural History to learn just what it takes to conserve a species before it becomes endangered. My guide and the curator of Lepidoptera and biodiversity there was Dr. Jarrett Daniels. Dr. Daniels has led fantastic work on a number of imperiled butterfly species throughout his career, but today I was there for one in particular, the Frosted Elfin.
The Frosted Elfin is a small hair-streaked butterfly that has a wingspan about the width of my thumb. And I always thought it was a really neat-looking butterfly, and it's called the Frosted Elfin because it has white scaling on the outside of its hind wing, which makes it look like it has been frosted, like with icing on a cake.
Frosted Elfin butterflies occupy a huge area of the eastern U.S., starting up in New Hampshire, going all the way down to Florida, west to Texas, back up to Wisconsin, but they're declining throughout much of that range. For the last 3 years, Wild Green Future donors have provided support for the Daniels Lab's work to establish captive populations of this species. And our tour began where the butterflies' lives begin, in a small back room at the museum.
So in these individual small cups are 1 or 2 Frosted Elfin females that have been mated, and they're laying eggs on their Baptisia host plants. And so we place the individual mated females in here along with a Q-tip, which is soaked in Gatorade, in this case fierce melon Gatorade, and that's the artificial nectar for them. So the female butterflies can feed as they want. Then we refresh the Q-tip with a syringe during the daytime, and this increases the longevity of the butterfly, and the longer they live, the more eggs they lay and produce in captivity. And then we maintain the individual cups under this embankment of lights. The lights are on a timer that goes on and off about every 30 minutes. And when the lights come on, it cues the butterfly to become active. After a little bit of time, they just sort of move around and burn energy. The lights go off. They relax and rest for a little bit. The lights come back on, and they begin becoming active and laying eggs. So in this setup, we can produce per individual butterfly several hundred eggs. And you maximize that over a dozen or so female butterflies, you're getting up to 1,000 eggs or more. So this is a very productive way for us to produce eggs and ultimately larvae in captivity.
Unlike the Frosted Elfins, Dr. Daniels did not spend his formative years in a small paper cup.
I actually grew up in Wisconsin.
But I was surprised to learn just how far back his interest in this species went.
This was a butterfly that as a kid, I really wanted to work on. I never had the chance to work on in the Midwest. Long after I started my career, I began working on this butterfly about 5 years ago.
After the eggs hatch, each Frosted Elfin is ready to move to the next stage of its career as a little green caterpillar. For this, they move to the sunny new home of a University of Florida greenhouse, where, like many young people, they have roommates.
Each of these cages has dozens or more individual caterpillars or larvae of the Frosted Elfin feeding on the plant material. The caterpillars are small and kind of slug-shaped, and they really blend into the green host plants. This is almost a fully grown caterpillar.
Across their range, Frosted Elfin caterpillars mostly rely on just 2 kinds of plants, wild indigo and sundial lupine. This kind of specialization is common in insects. Most plants don't want to be eaten, and they have ways of making insects regret taking a bite. In response, different insect species will specialize on just 1 or 2 plants each, gaining special immunity to their host's particular defenses.
They feed on the foliage, they also feed on the stem parts of the plant, and then they will eventually, once they're fully mature, they will crawl down the plant and pupate in the upper leaf litter or even burrow into the soil and pupate a few centimeters below the top of the soil. And that's very beneficial because they live in a fire-adapted system. And so if fire goes over the top of them and doesn't penetrate the soil too heavily, they can survive and emerge the following years.
Why all the trouble to protect themselves from fire? Sundial lupine and wild indigo are both plants of dry upland habitats, where regular, low-intensity fires are vital to maintaining the plant community. As upland areas have been developed and their fires suppressed, these plants have become less widespread. In turn, the Frosted Elfin butterfly populations have become spottier, and they're even absent from some states they used to inhabit. Even when good habitat is restored, the gaps between the populations mean that existing Frosted Elfins might have trouble finding it. No fire, less plants, less Frosted Elfin butterflies. There is one more food source a hungry caterpillar might consider, and making sure that they don't is an important part of the captive rearing process.
One challenge with this butterfly is that the larvae are often highly cannibalistic, so they like feeding on their family members in those cages. So we grow them on a lot of host plants so that minimizes that predation, and then we finish them in the lab when they're the most vulnerable to potentially being eaten by their brethren. This is one of our environmental chambers. This is where we have full-grown caterpillars of the Frosted Elfin. We maintain them in small individual portion cup containers until they pupate. It's really critical to have an environmental chamber like this so we can match the temperatures to what they would normally experience in the wild, so they don't come out of a pupa as an adult butterfly at a time where they would not naturally do so. And then once they're pupated, we maintain the pupae again in the same small little portion cups like this, and they'll remain as a pupa until the following spring.
In the springtime, when the pupae are ready to emerge, is when the most exciting part of this program happens. Many parts of the Frosted Elfin's former range have actually been restored, but are too far away from existing populations for the butterflies to get there on their own. That's where this captive breeding program comes in. More caterpillars are produced than needed to continue the captive population. These individuals are instead going to soft release enclosures, which take the form of little tents placed over the lupine flowers they eat. The tents protect them from predators long enough for them to mature and crawl down to pupate under the sand, where they'll wait until the next spring to emerge as fully fledged Frosted Elfin butterflies. The Frosted Elfin's populations are disappearing and its range is shrinking. It's an imperiled species, but not yet one listed under the Endangered Species Act. This time period, when the species is clearly in decline, but individuals can still be easily found, is a critical window of opportunity.
So hopefully if our efforts are successful and other collaborators' efforts are successful, one thing that could happen is it could preclude listing under the ESA, which would be the goal, right? We don't want to have to list a species if we don't have to. And if we can build back numbers and populations and security for those organisms, that's the end goal, so that it's more secure, in the future than it is right now.
Once an animal is truly, imminently endangered, it can become very difficult to bring it back. The best time to conserve this species is now, before it reaches the brink.